also Ross McDonald, who wrote The Watchmen, both took an interest and were supportive. And maybe I wasn't ready yet. Actually, wasn't. But I think maybe they saw that I had prospects, that I had some possibilities.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up Ross McDonald because I did want to ask about him as well. Ross McDonald is the pen name of Kenneth Miller, and he was famous for these Lou Archer detective novels. So
Right.
another kind of dip into the world of detective procedurals that seem to have been quite inspiring for you from a young age. I've read that you discovered him when you were 15, by which point you were already a voracious reader. You were writing your Man from Uncle fan fiction.
Yep.
What was it about Ross McDonald's novels that stood out for you?
Yeah, it's funny. My bookstore was the twirling, squeaky metal paperback rack at the IGA grocery store in Bobcaygeon. And I saw one day there was a paperback of the Goodbye book, this novel, and it said at the top, it was a blurb from the New York Times, which was actually William Goldman review, and said, the finest series of detective novels ever written by an American. I thought, well, I'm going to read that. And the other thing I loved about it was, if you can believe this, the font that was used on the cover for the title of his name was the same font that was used throughout all the Man from Uncle movies and TV shows. So it's the same font. And I thought, well, I love that font, so it's got to be a good book.
Red
And
light,
I
you
just started devouring all of them. I
motherfucker.
just started reading all of them. You know, what I liked about them, I guess, and this is kind of in retrospect looking back, but I think what appealed to me was this was a writer who was taking the conventions of the detective novel and doing something with it.
Oh, shit.
And there was social commentary, there was corruption of wealth, environmentalism, there were all these things that Kenneth Miller cared about. And,
You're running the red light.
and make my point,
Okay.
but I can do it in context of the mystery so that I can entertain you as well. And maybe at the time it wasn't quite as obvious to me just how incredibly dysfunctional my own family was, but to read about other dysfunctional families was very satisfying.
Well, speaking of dysfunctional families, Linwood, I want to talk about No Time for Goodbye, which was your big breakout book, and it was this sort of dark domestic thriller, which was a bit of a change from the more comedic books that you wrote with your first series, you know, starting with Bad Mood. No Time for Goodbye is about this 14-year-old girl who wakes up and finds that her family has vanished. How did that book change your life and your writing career?
Wow, did it ever. So I had written 4 novels about that, 4 sort of comic thrillers, and you know, I like to say that collectively they sold about 90 copies or so. And so my agent had said, you can keep doing these, but it might be wise to think, stop writing funny, write a, quote, big thriller. And so you just need a great hook, great idea. And so I would send her an idea in email, and she'd say, I've read that before. And I'd send another idea, and she'd say, yeah, I don't know. And then one morning at 5, I wake up and